Hi, I'm Dan, and welcome to Polar Currency and video number 70, my 5 dirty secret currency collections. For over 20 years, I've collected paper currency, and like many, I started out with small size, post 1928 U.S. currency, which was available and affordable. But over the past 10 years, my collecting horizon has diversified. Yes, I eventually had the experience and budget to expand into large U.S. size notes, but it was more than that. It started out in 2020 with my contemporary World Banknote collection. I know nobody wants to hear about World Banknotes, but just listen. I figuratively found an entire world of currency, and things got worse from there. But all 5 dirty secrets aren't paper currency. You're going to have to wait till the end for that.
Number 5. This shouldn't be a big surprise because I've mentioned this collection before, but I'm still working on my U.S. small-size banknote collection. I'm collecting every $1, $2, and $5 Friedberg number for legal tender notes, silver certificates, and Federal Reserve notes, but only FRNs from the Minneapolis Federal Reserve. So you won't see a bar note or a web note because the Minneapolis Fed didn't issue them. It's weird because this normally isn't my gig. I'm not that kind of analytical person. My original intent was to put together a type collection of small-sized notes, which I'm working on with the 1 through 100 denominations. There's some tough notes in that collection for 50s and 100s, especially Type 2 nationals that I'll probably never get. I've completed the 1s and 2s, and the collection includes the Bureau of Engraving and Print locations. If a note was printed in D.C. or Fort Worth, they're in the collection. I have a total of 10 $5 notes remaining to collect to complete it. They aren't expensive, they're just hard to find. eBay has actually been my best bet, but it does get a bit mind-numbing looking for notes even with the filters. There are so many stupid sellers who just don't put the correct information in their listing, and you wind up sifting through a lot of junk. Well, that's it. It's a pretty simple collection. Number 4.
My next dirty collecting secret happened after I discovered Canadian and Mexican currency, which is no secret because I've made 8 videos about them. Canada and Mexico were my very first World Banknote purchases, but just like any gateway drug, my second World Banknote video, The Caribbean, led me to Cuba, which led me to Cuba banknotes from the 1950s. Again, I realize that this is not a big secret because I've done a video on these notes. The secret? I kept collecting them, looking to complete my collection and upgrade some of the notes. I just love them. I'm still searching for the elusive 500. It's not cheap, it is attainable, but it's just scarce. Shameless plug here, if you haven't watched my Viva La Cuba video, I highly suggest you do. It's one of my favorite videos.
It's the history and beauty of these notes that make them number 4 on the list. The 1950s was a tumultuous time for Cuba of pre-revolution Castro with a myriad of contrasts. Beginning in the late 1940s, Cuba, specifically Havana, became Las Vegas before Las Vegas. Havana was the place to go with cheap flights and hotels making Cuba a hotspot accessible to many Americans. Legalized gambling not only attracted tourists but organized crime who were seeking asylum from U.S. authorities. The country was ruled by a corrupt dictator who took power with a military coup and inherited an economy creeping towards collapse. All of this was happening while a communist revolution was brewing in the hills and jungles of Cuba. The story hooked me, but the banknotes reeled me in. The following Cuban notes were designed and printed by the American Banknote Company with beautiful colors and were issued between 1949 and 1960. All of these notes are almost the same size as today's U.S. currency. The Blue Series 1960 1 peso front has the portrait of Jose Marti, who was a Cuban poet, philosopher, essayist, journalist, professor, publisher, and revolutionary during the late 1800s Cuban Revolution. Marti is considered a Cuban national hero. The 5 peso series 1949 is bright orange and depicts General Maximo Gomez, who was a general for the Cuban Revolutionary Forces in 3 wars fought over 30 years when Cuba was finally able to win independence from Spain in 1902. The tan-red front of the Series 1960 10 pesos has the portrait of Carlos Manuel de Cepeda, a Cuban revolutionary hero and the first president of Cuba in arms in 1868. De Cepeda is a Cuban national hero and is known as the father of the fatherland in Cuba. The Series 1958 green-yellow 20 pesos bears the portrait of Antonio Maceo, a lieutenant general who fought again in all three of the Cuban Wars of Independence against Spain. He became known as the Bronze Titan for the amount of times he was wounded, but he was brutally killed in action by Spanish colonial forces in 1896 after being betrayed by his headquarters physician. The pale yellow 50 pesos 1958 series pictures Calixto Garcia Iniguez, who in 1868 at age 18 joined the Cuban revolutionaries and fought for independence for the next 30 years. The purple 100 pesos 1950 series has the portrait of Francisco Aguilera, one of the wealthiest men in Cuba at the outbreak of revolution in 1868, heading the first Cuban Revolutionary Committee. He gave his entire fortune for Cuban independence and died almost completely destitute in 1871. The teal green 1,000 pesos was only printed for the one-year series of 1950. The front has the portrait of Tomas Estrada Palma, who also fought for over 30 years, becoming the first president of Cuba following the full independence from Spain from 1902 to 1906. Strangely, during this time, Cuba issued two different colors for two different denominations. The 5 pesos started with the 1949 orange note and then in 1958 converted to the same teal blue as the 1,000 pesos. The same thing happened with the 100. It went from purple to a really vibrant orange in 1958 and is the note that initially attracted me to these banknotes. I love the orange. Even more bizarre is that two more notes were added with a completely different design. In 1956, and circulating right alongside the 1949 to 1960 orange-red 5 pesos, was the pale yellow series 1958 that was 13% smaller and has the portrait on the right and now has a center vignette. The series 1956 10 pesos, the same thing. Portrait on the right and a new center vignette added, but no reduction in size. Both of these notes were designed and produced by the De La Rue Company of London. Curiously, I found no information as to why these notes were issued and why they circulated side by side with the American Banknote Company notes. To me, the backs are also stunning, with the colors almost jumping off the banknotes. The design may appear to be simple and repetitive with the Cuban coat of arms at center, but look a bit closer and you can see significant differences in the borders. Every denomination is unique. The guilloche lathework surrounding the corner numerical denominations are all distinctive. I have to thank viewer Bob Ford 7366 for letting me know the correct pronunciation of galeche is really guilloche, and that's the lathework printing that you see that looks like spider webbing. I've been saying that wrong for, 20 years. The engraving for the Republic of Cuba banner also vary in design, and each center background behind the coat of arms contrasts from banknote to banknote. The different colors do mask the differences between all the reverse engravings of these notes, but they're just mesmerizing and yet still have the familiar look of U.S. currency at the time. Like the fronts, the two De La Rue Company designs have very different backs. Both have new border designs, and vignettes have been added flanking the coat of arms at center. I'm still scratching my head as to why these notes were ever produced and issued. Well, that's it for my Cuban banknotes. Number 3. This dirty secret collection is from the Commonwealth of the Philippines, but we have to ask one key question and backtrack in time a little bit. The question first. Do you think the U.S. Series 1928 was the first small-size currency ever printed and produced by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing? But here's the part where we have to backtrack first. The first paper currency issued in the Philippines was released by the Spanish colonial regime from the El Banco Español Filipino de Isabel II in 1852 and were in use until 1896. The bank name changed when Queen Isabella II was deposed in 1868 to just El Banco Español Filipino. But then came the Spanish-American War, and the United States entered the imperialism age by making the Philippines Islands officially a U.S. colony in 1899. The U.S. paid Spain $20 million and ruled in one form or another until 1946 when the Republic of the Philippines gained independence. Now, why is this important?
Let's go back to the question. Was the Series 1928 banknotes the first small-size paper money produced by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing? The answer is no. With the Philippines basically a colony in 1903, the U.S. administration in the Philippines, after approval by Congress and the President, they established a new currency system for the Philippine Islands. This system was based on the gold exchange standard. Don't really know what that means and don't care, honestly. The legal currency became the Philippine silver peso. With the Philippines a colony, the BEP got called on to produce the banknotes and did so from Series 1903 to 1948. The reason given at the time for the smaller size note was that it could be differentiated from the existing currency in circulation. But I'm pretty sure cost savings was a key factor. You'll see the beauty, color, and artistry of these Filipino banknotes. Very similar to U.S. large size, especially the backs and the bold, different colors used. But they were the same size as the future U.S. small size currency beginning with Series 1928.
The process to reduce the size of all U.S. types of paper currency began in 1909 when Secretary of the Treasury Franklin McVeigh formed a committee to consider changing the design and size of the currency. McVeigh's direction was that the new size be identical to that of the Philippines Islands currency and would be a significant cost savings. For more on that, check the link below for my video, What If Changing the Face of Currency? Philippine Islands BEP sidebar. I know, it's exciting. This 1 peso circulating note wasn't issued until the series of 1918. Recognize the portrait? Well, you shouldn't. This banknote gets my award for the most insignificant person ever portrayed on paper currency that was made and produced by the BEP. The guy is Charles Arthur Conant, who is an American journalist, author, promoter, who became recognized as an expert in banking and finance. He was only in the Philippines from 1901 to 1902, sent by the Secretary of War to remove Mexican silver from circulation. Can't have any of that. I just have no idea why they would put this insignificant person on any banknote. End of sidebar.
Just like the United States, there were a variety of BEP-produced Filipino currency types that came and went mainly for financial reasons. The original banknotes were with silver certificates. In 1918, they were replaced by treasury certificates. Issued at the same time were circulating notes. Sound familiar here? I have 8 Filipino banknotes, 1 silver certificate, 7 treasury certificates, and 1 circulating note. These were all backed by silver or bonds issued by the U.S. government via the Treasury of the Commonwealth of the Philippines.
This is the second issue of the 5 peso silver certificate Series 1910. The first was Series 1903. The note portrays 25th U.S. President William McKinley, who was pulling double duty on the Series 1902 Third Charter U.S. $10 national banknote at the same time. McKinley is on both because he was assassinated in 1901 and was president when the Philippines became a U.S. war prize in 1898/99. The reverse is a peach-orange color. A total of 5.4 million of these notes were issued with 4 signature combinations. 6.8 million of the Series 1936 2 pesos treasury certificates were issued. Like the previous note, the basic design of the 2 pesos was used since 1903. The portrait is of Jose Rizal, who was a patriot, physician, poet, and novelist who inspired the Philippine nationalist movement. Rizal was executed at age 35 in 1896 by the Spanish colonial regime and is a national hero of the Philippines. It's a beautiful note with the palm frowns around Rizal's portrait, along with the blue rays that radiate out from behind the lower center 2 pesos denomination. I'll get to the reverse of this note later. The Series 1937 $10 circulating note was issued by the Philippine National Bank that was established in 1916 and is still in operation today. But as you can see, the star of this note is George Washington front and center. It's an odd portrait, and it's not the same as today's modern $1, but it's close. What is for certain is that the 1937 $10 circulating note bears a close resemblance to the Series 1923 $10 legal tender note. There were 3 series of this note issued, with the 1937 having 102,000 notes printed. The reverse of the note is interesting because of the color. Remember, all these banknotes were produced by the BEP with colors besides green. The brown reverse color is the same for all 10 pesos denominations produced by the BEP for the Philippines. Then we get to the series that really caught my attention, mainly because of the history. That is the Victory Series of 1944, which are all Treasury certificates. The banknotes were issued to celebrate the liberation of the Philippine Islands from Japan in 1944, towards the end of World War II, and they have Victory overprinted on the back, similar to the U.S. Hawaiian notes, but much bolder. Because of the overprint, I have to show the backs first because, like the Cuban notes, they are just incredible. Still can't believe the BEP was making these colors in 1944. The notes aren't dated, but are designated Victory Series number 66 in honor of the age of Philippine President Manuel Quezon, who died at 66 just prior to the U.S. reclaiming the islands from the Japanese. I don't have the 20, 100, and 500 pesos, but I certainly have to show them. When U.S. forces landed on Leyte Island in October 1944, they brought a total value of 1.2 billion pesos of the Victory Series notes along with them. This design was the sister 1 peso to the most insignificant person the BEP ever placed on a banknote. This is the face of the Series 66 1 peso and features the first Prime Minister of the Philippines, Alapinero Mabini. Have to appreciate the light orange ray burst behind the center denomination that continues for all of the Treasury certificates. Over 61 million of these notes were printed. The 2 pesos is just beautiful with the blue Commonwealth seal complementing the center ray burst and the serial numbers. We've covered the portrait of Jose Rizal. It's interesting that even though this banknote is not a silver certificate, the legal obligation states payable in silver pesos or legal tender. 18.5 million with 2 signature combinations were issued. The 5 pesos is one of the rare notes that have 2 portraits. The left keeps President William McKinley but adds George Dewey, Admiral of the Navy. Dewey was the first person to attain this rank, which is equal to today's 5-star admiral. He's best known for the naval victory at the Battle of Manila Bay, where the capital of Philippines, Quezon City, is at during the Spanish-American War. 17.3 million of these notes were issued. I think this is my second favorite small-size banknote that the BEP has ever produced, and once again George Washington is front and, well, left. This profile portrait of Washington is so unusual and cool, maybe just used to seeing it on the quarter. Certainly better than today's $1 FRN. At first it surprised me that U.S. figures were placed on Filipino banknotes, but it's really no different than Canada, Australia, and any other British Commonwealth who put Great Britain's monarch on their currency. 16.8 million were issued, and these Victory Series notes certainly remind me of the 1915 and 1918 Federal Reserve banknotes, especially with the center bank block country block area. I don't have the 20 pesos Victory note, but it has a spectacular center vignette of the Mayon volcano located on the largest island of the Philippines, Luzon. The volcano is very active, last erupting in 2024. The Mayon is still featured on the recently issued 2024 Philippine Polymer 100 peso banknote. The 50 pesos depicts Major General Henry Ware Lawton, a 38-year veteran who was awarded the Medal of Honor in the U.S. Civil War. Lawton became the first general officer killed in action in an overseas action for the U.S. He was fatally shot by a sniper during the Battle of San Mateo in 1899. This note is in kind of tough shape, but if you haven't noticed, it's a star replacement note. Almost 1.8 million were printed, but probably not a lot of them were star notes. No 100 pesos for me, but the note depicts Ferdinand Magellan, a Portuguese navigator and explorer who sailed under the flags of both Portugal and Spain. From Spain, he sailed around South America, discovering the Straits of Magellan, and across the Pacific. Though he was killed in the Philippines, one of his ships continued westward to Spain, becoming the first to circumnavigate the globe. I'll probably never complete the Victory series because the 500 peso gets up there in price. The face has the portrait of Miguel Legazpi, another Spanish explorer who established Spain's dominion over the Philippines in 1564 that lasted until 1898. Legazpi seems an odd choice for the people of the Philippines, but another beautiful note with the purple burst radiating from the center block. There are other Philippine currency types that the BEP produced that I haven't talked about that are just as stunning, but my collection has to have a stopping point. They were issued by the El Banco Español Filipino and the Bank of the Philippine Islands. They issued a 200 denomination in 1912, which has a close appearance to the 1905 $20 Technicolor gold certificate. The second 200 was a simplified version with the series of 1928. The reverse for both notes had the vibrant orange back. You're in luck, another BEP and foreign country sidebar. The BEP designed, engraved, and printed banknotes for only one foreign country, and that was Cuba for their Silver Certificate Series 1934 to 1949. Remember, the Philippines was a U.S. Commonwealth, not a foreign country. The BEP was also contracted to design banknotes for Thailand for 2 years following World War II, South Korea from 1953 to 1962, and more recently Eritrea, formerly part of Ethiopia, beginning in 1997. The BEP only designed the last three notes but did not engrave or print them. End of sidebar. I'd like to give thanks and credit to two banknote websites that specialize in Philippine money. They are Numismatic Philippines and Paper Coinage. Clever name on the second one. These sites really help me find information and to be able to confirm it. Again, like I said, the history of these banknotes just fascinate me. Add to the fact that the BEP were producing small-size banknotes that had the creativity and beauty of U.S. large-size banknotes. It's almost like the BEP was experimenting. Well, as much as I love U.S. currency, that creativity certainly did not transfer to the 1928-1929 small-size banknotes. All in all, that's why these notes rank number 3 in my dirty secret collection. Number two.
All right, so here's where things really go off the rails with my number 2 dirty collection. New Zealand banknotes from the 1980s. So why? Why New Zealand banknotes from the 1980s? Well, I was trolling great collections looking for interesting world banknotes. Yeah, that's what I do. You can find some great prices, so I check great collections once a week at their weekly auction. What caught my attention was this red-orange $5 note from New Zealand. I'm always looking for inexpensive orange and blue banknotes. The note was graded PMG 66 and the price was at $13 2 weeks before the auction ended. So I put in a bid for $14 and waited for the auction, never thinking it would stay that low. End of the day, I got the note for $36 all in. But wait, there's more. A collector was selling a bunch of these 1980s New Zealand banknotes, and more high-grade notes kept coming up in auctions over the next few months. So I kept checking in and seeing if the prices stayed cheap, and I kept picking them up. Next thing you know, I got a collection going. Obviously, they aren't worth much, but hey, a 64, two 65s, two 66s, each for $50 or less? Come on. I don't know if I'm on crack or if it's the Queen thing or the simple yet intricate design of the colors. I just like them. And now for some short history about New Zealand banknotes. Yeah, I know, bear with me, it is short.
The Reserve Bank of New Zealand first issued banknotes in August 1934 with what they called Series 1, bearing the portrait of King Tefio, an Aboriginal leader in the late 1800s. Series 2 notes were issued from 1940 to 1967 with the likeness of British captain and navigator John Cook, who was the first European to map the New Zealand islands. In 1967, New Zealand converted to a decimal-based monetary system and changed the name of their currency from pound to dollar and issued the Series 3 with the 1960 portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. And that brings us to my series. The Series 4 circulated from 1981 to 1992, and all of the notes bear the same portrait of the United Kingdom's Queen Elizabeth II, and that portrait was commissioned for her Silver Jubilee in 1977. The $1 and $2 notes were discontinued in 1991 and replaced by the $1 and $2 coins. Even though New Zealand is 100% an independent country, it's still part of the Commonwealth of Nations, also known as the British Commonwealth, and the sovereign of the United Kingdom is still considered the sovereign of New Zealand, albeit a figurehead, similar to Australia, Canada, and numerous other countries. Not only is every note a different color, but the banknotes get larger with each higher denomination. The fronts of the Series 4 banknotes bear a remarkable likeness to the backs of Scenes of Canada banknotes issued from 1969 to 79. The guilloche lathe-work patterns are very similar, even though they were produced by two different companies. The notes bear the heavy bank block text at the bottom with a menagerie of unique guilloche lathe-work, all with slightly different patterns and colors. If you just really look past the banknote and see them, it's really cool. With the issue of the Series 5 banknotes in 1992, Queen Elizabeth only appears on the $20 banknote. It has been announced that the next generation $20 note will have the portrait of King Charles III, but not until about 2027. Ah, the 50, another truly orange banknote. I was going to stop at the 20 because the 50 gets spendy in higher grades, but I broke down and picked up this graded 25 from eBay. Sometimes you just have to make sacrifices for the cause. I don't have the 100 and don't think I will. This dirty secret collection does have its limits. But it is one stunning note because damn, that red is bold. Maybe someday, I don't know. The reverses all have a similarity to Canadian banknotes. Like Canada's 1980 bird series, all the backs of the banknotes have an engraving of a bird. New Zealand decided to add a plant too. Both are native to New Zealand. The one has a male New Zealand fantail at center, displaying a courtship dance with clematis flowers at the left. The two has the rifleman bird in flight. The rifleman is considered to be New Zealand's smallest bird at 2 to 3 inches long. The flower is that of the mistletoe that actually grows on other plants to survive. The 5 has the illustration of the tui bird, which is well known for its tuft of white throat feathers and is about 11 inches long. The kowai tree flowers is one of the best known native trees in New Zealand. The 10 has the Kia parrot, or mountain parrot. These things grow up to 18 inches long. Now that's a big parrot. The mountain lily is the world's largest buttercup and can reach up to 5 feet high. The 50 shows the morabrick, a small owl named after how its call sounds. It's shown with the blossom of the Poitakua tree, or iron tree, and it is considered New Zealand's Christmas tree, which that's kind of cool. The 100 depicts the takahe, which are the largest flightless species of wading birds or shorebirds in the world and were thought to be extinct until 1948. The Selmisia, or mountain daisy, is an alpine species of flowers that are part of the buttercup family. So, that's it folks for Dirty Secret Collection number 2, the Series 4 New Zealand banknotes of the 1980s. Not a lot of history attached to the issue, I just like them. Number 1. Now, I'm probably going to take a lot of crap for this, but coming in at my number 1 dirty secret currency collection is, drumroll please, U.S. Mint clad proof sets. That's right, you heard me correctly. U.S. Mint clad proof sets. You see, when I first started collecting currency, and I say that with air quotes because I mean coins, that was back in 1998 with the state quarters. That was also the first time I saw a U.S. mint proof set, and I thought they were brilliant. For about 10 years, I've ordered both the clad and the silver sets. But the annual silver set prices kept going up, and so I decided to sell them off along with some ASEs in 2011 when the price of silver actually hit $40. I know, that's super weird. Can you imagine silver at $40 an ounce? Well, I digress. Well, I did keep the clad sets, a few ASEs, and put together a U.S. 20th century coin type set. I even went back from 1998 to fill in all encapsulated coin sets starting with the 1965 special mint set. I eventually put together a U.S. half dollar and silver dollar type sets along with a number of 1-ounce sovereign coins. So it's fair to ask, why did I, 1, keep buying the clad proof sets every year, and 2, why did I go backwards to go get every year? Honestly, I don't really know. I just think it was about checking the box of compulsion as a collector. I really do like them, even though Canada does a better job, and display the present year on my bookshelf.
So those are my top 5 dirty secret currency collections in video number 70. I'm making fun of some of my more eclectic collections, but I think it's important to collect what you like. Having different collections certainly has broadened my overall knowledge and enjoyment of collecting paper currency. Don't be afraid to get something different. As always, I appreciate your time. Please take the time to subscribe to the channel, hit the thumbs up button, and feel free to leave a comment. We'll see you next time around, and thank you for checking in.